So over the years of doing solar installs, I've had quite a few people ask me just how easy or how difficult it is to install, all of this solar stuff. I've installed it on my teardrop trailers with aluminum roof. I've installed it on my travel trailers. I've installed it on Class C's. I've installed it on EPDM roofs, and I'm about to install it on a TPO roof. It's pretty much all the same. The physical act of connecting all the pieces is probably the easiest part. The more difficult aspect is whether it's proper routing, engineering the whole design, dealing with all sorts of issues that come up. But as for actual roof, it's about the same. Now, there's a school of thought. People generally don't want to be drilling into the roof, and justifiably so. I mean, nobody wants to put holes in the roof. So one thing I wanted to bring up to your attention is, I'm sure you've heard of using VHB tape, and I have used it in the past. And as a matter of fact, in this install, I'm going to be using VHB tape. However, it is not a tool or a method which you should be using unless you have full aluminum roof or fiberglass roof. Okay, it's just a fact. Okay, you cannot simply rely on that. Now, the reason why is, if you look here where my hand is, okay, the very easy way to determine whether you have the TPO or EPDM is if you have a cheap trailer, for example, okay, more than likely you're gonna have EPDM. And but if you legitimately have no idea how to tell the difference, take your finger and slide it across the surface like so. Okay, if it's a smooth surface like this one is, it's going to be a TPO. It's going to have this rubbery, sort of very dry feel to it, whereas EPDM surface will have little bumps and grooves and other things on it. Now, the reason why I told you not to use VHB tape is, and this is a perfect example, if I camped out here on the roof, when you have a look at this, see that? See the roof jump up and down? Okay? And this is why you shouldn't be using VHB tape on EPDM or TPO roofs. The roof here is adhered to essentially a 1/4 inch low-end board, and it's adhered with nothing but a very thin glue. It's not made to be in industrial style. It's not meant to be holding anything like that. It's just here to kind of spread things out, and that's it. Now, TPO specifically, and I know for a fact because if you look behind me that way, I have a portion of my house that's flat roof, and I've paid $7,000 to get that done, okay, with a slight pitch and the whole 9 yards. But when they were installing it, they told me that it was going to shrink and contract every single day, multiple times a day, and I was like, what? And yeah, this is a perfect example. Here's what it is. Now, this morning when I was out here, the ripples were all through here, and now about 8-9 hours later, most of the ripples are gone. So this material breathes and contracts a little bit, and so what happens is, as it contracts and elongates, or whatever is the correct term, it peels itself off the backing that's underneath of it, and then it adheres itself back to it. It's not coming off, but it's certainly not a good base for you to install anything. So the obvious logical thing to do is to find studs. Okay, and when you look on the roof up here, you're like, how am I going to do that? So you could do the traditional knock on the wood method, and get fairly accurate with it. Some people may suggest that you use a magnet, and the way that would work is like, let's say if this was a wooden beam with metal screws. When you take your magnet and sort of swish it and swirl it like this, it will actually catch, like just for sake of argument, it would go like that. And so that's how you would determine where the beam is. In my house where I have drywall, that's exactly how I find studs. Even better than my fancy schmancy stud finder. I've had multiple stud finders in the years past. They all suck for multiple reasons, but it's a necessary evil if you want to be doing this thing. Now, I'm going to be demonstrating this specifically. This is from Walmart. This is like 20 something bucks. And the way that works is it has a surface on the bottom and really one button. And this will light up yellow if it sees electrical. And otherwise, it will light up red if and when it finds the stud. So we're going to do a little quick experiment. Hear the hollow sound? Okay, this is a stud right there. Okay, so the way typical stud finder works, whether you move it like that or something like this, you press and hold, and if you notice where the lights are, this is the stud. And the reason why I'm showing you 3 bars over there is because this is the edge, either edge of the actual beam. Yes, we're dealing with 1x1s, 1x2s, and 1x3s in the RV. And that's kind of the reason why it's so difficult to actually hit the stud. So one thing you need to be doing as you're trying and figure out where to put solar panels and everything like that, not even necessarily where to physically place them, but where and how are you going to mount them into the studs. So in my particular case, I have 500 watts of Renogy monocrystaline panels that are going here. In the future, in a theoretical sense, I have capacity to install 10 panels here for 1000 watts system. I've been exploring DC to DC chargers, so I may go that route instead. But in any event, my goal is to put 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or maybe 5, or somehow, and you're not gonna know the true definition of it, of where it's all going to go, until you physically get your panels here, and until you physically get the mounting hardware here. So the way we're going to be mounting all this stuff is we're going to be using VHB tape, and we're also going to be screwing into the studs. So a couple of other housekeeping items. Wire management is critical, because otherwise it's just going to be a mess out here, especially if you have more than a couple of panels. So in this particular case, if you look here, this is a Weboost mobile booster. So that's going here. Have a little bit of extra cable, and then it goes through the fridge vent. Okay, and simultaneously you see 2 other cables coming out. Those are your positive and negative. This out here is going to be a combiner box. Traditionally speaking, if you're not planning to put more than, let's say, 4 panels out here, you don't even need to think about that. Okay, but at some point, once you start adding panels, you need to be thinking about the voltages and capacity of your connectors and yada yada yada. So this is lowest brand PVC box, and I've purchased wire connectors that go through the wall offset box, and they're going on this side and that side and this side, but not on that side. Okay, and the way, well, this is obviously not the final place, but the way that's going to work is there's two metal, and once I start installing, I'll show you guys. There's two metal plates in there that everything is being connected to, and they're household brand, and you know, they're rated for higher voltages and all of that. So if you notice, so far wiring is to the minimal, so all the other wiring is going to come through the roof, very neat, very nice, you know, with zip ties and everything like that, and it's all going through the vent over there. And I'll show you guys what it looks like on the bottom. Alright, so we've done some measuring. Now this is the reason why you need to look for studs. Spacing is really all over the place. There's a bit of normalcy to some extent, but then in other places it's jumping all over the place. Now if you notice, they are not your typical 14 inches on center. This up here would be. Everything else is a lot less, and I could actually feel it underneath my feet walking on the roof. Now on travel trailers, this spacing more than likely is going to be 14 inches, which allows you to plop a vent pretty much anywhere. Here, that's a completely different thing. Now, the reason why I've lined this out like so is because my mounting options, most people that want to buy panels so they could tilt them, you know, mount them sort of like this. So you're gonna have to catch a stud like there and there and there and there and in my particular case, I don't care to tilt them ever, but I am using tilting bracketry because I like how it functions and how it lifts it up. So the way that's going to go is, instead of being mounted like so, it's actually being mounted like that. And that's really important because I'll be able to pretty much shimmy shift my panel anywhere that I want and still be able to hit the studs, because the actual mount, which is probably I'm thinking about 24 to 36 inches long, is going to catch at least multiple of them. So we're using VHB to adhere, and we're also using screws to go through the studs, and that's kind of the reason why I had to look for the studs. Alright, now that we're on firm ground, by the way, if I'm sweating, it's hot as hell here in Florida. Anyways, so have wiring that comes obviously through the back of the fridge. And just so you know, you don't have to remove the fridge. Of all the times I've installed this, I have never, ever never had to remove the fridge. You just take the wires and be sure to zip tie them on the front, I mean on the top, and also up here on the bottom. So here you could see how there's actually convenient holes in this outlet where you could put the zip ties through. And so all of that, you're gonna have to drill a hole somewhere in your fridge, and well, in the wood paneling, right? So all of that goes right about here. Now here's where it's interesting. There underneath the fridge, if you look here, this is the cabinet. Right there. That has all sorts of wiring. And through that floor on the bottom, I've had to drill an additional hole to take all of the wires that are coming off behind the fridge through this cabinet, through the floor. Okay, So the next phase is to actually put the batteries and the wiring and everything from this area to where the rest of my components are. Now, I wanted to do a very clean install. A lot of people will actually mount things here or up above somewhere. I wanted to have everything just invisible so that when you come in here, you have no idea that there's solar equipment or anything like that. So, which is the reason why everything is underneath this couch. Okay? But for me to be able to do that, everything has to go from here to over there, right? Don't have to drill holes in the cabinets, nothing like that. So in a lot of Class C's, they put batteries right here. This particular one came, by the way, when you buy an RV, make sure this doesn't happen to you. This is how they sold me RV with this battery. Right, no cap, nothing. I have no idea if that thing boiled out or whatever, but anyways. So, as you know, I have a 400 amp hour battery bank by Renogy AGM batteries. Unfortunately, they're a tad too big to fit into this space. So what I had to do is, when you lift the stair, underneath the stair there's a piano hinge. Undo every single screw, remove this entire step, and it will make placement of your batteries here a breeze. Like, you have no idea what a tremendous difference, because I tried to like shimmy the battery like so, started bending this a little bit, and I'm like, that's not gonna work. Remove the piano hinge, remove the stair, and it just drops in straight into place. So there's two batteries here, and then there's two batteries actually underneath the couch. And the wiring that's coming off the roof and everything, it goes through here, underneath all of this, and everything is zip tied. Like, I go through bags of zip ties like it's nobody's business. So you can't have too many zip ties. So it goes through there. You could actually see the wiring. And then there's a secondary hole right there. Oh, by the way, you can add this plastic shroud to those wires. I have not added it yet because I just haven't added it yet as of time of me recording this, but I will be adding something like this and securing it with electrical tape. Okay, so let's go inside for a second. Through a trial and error of doing installs for several years now, I've determined that there's certain things that work better and other things not so much. Damn, it's like 95 degrees in here at least. So one thing that I've gone away from traditional cheapo circuit breakers and actually went to a household type circuit breakers. Now there's two types of circuit breakers. There's the AC rated, okay, which is what you put into your house, and then some of them are rated for DC, and you have to find the right one. Okay, so I've been using this for quite some time, and those things are freaking awesome. It's rated AC and DC, okay, and so you put the wire in there, you lock it into place, and this is your circuit breaker. Alright, so now we're gonna talk about this for a quick minute. So if you notice, there's a whole bunch of stuff over here, but don't be scared. So one thing is, there's nobody will be riding on the sofa as it's in motion, therefore I don't need the seat belts. So the seat belts are actually used to secure two additional batteries that you see over there. Okay, and then I've attached part of your, because I'm not going to be tilting my solar panels, but they do come with that tilt bracket. So I've taken multiple tilt brackets, 1, 2, and 3 on the bottom. Those are the aluminum brackets that you see. Screwed it into the floor just to provide myself an additional layer of security. I don't go fancy with the inverters. This is your typical Walmart brand 1000 watts Schumacher inverter. Okay, and it's connected here. This is my phone booster over there, Weboost. Electrical hookup for the Weboost. And then I've attached this do-it-yourself outlet. It's going to be in the off position majority of the time, with exception unless, of course, I need it. Okay, this over there is my circuit breaker. Okay, and my Renogy mppt 40 amp charge controller is straight over there. So the way that works is solar is going to be charging that battery in the back. Okay, but entire RV is running off the very last battery here underneath the stairs. And the reason why I do that is that the charge goes sort of in one big cycle. I want every single battery to contribute, every single battery to deplete at the same rate, every single battery to go through the brouhaha associated with it. So there's that. Now, obviously, it would have been too much of a long run for me to wire inverted to the furthest battery over there. But then I'd have to put inverter over that way somewhere. So I didn't want to mess with any of that. So in this particular case, inverter is connected to battery number 2. And when you close this, you have no idea that there's any sort of solar equipment in this RV. None. It looks stock. And the reason why I left it like that is because it's just a clean look. I don't need to look at my voltage every 2 seconds. If anything, I have Bluetooth, which is actually there-ish. You know, it will let me know what's what and stuff like that. So, but a lot of people, you know, they'll start to mount things here-ish, and there's all sorts of wires that you have to mess with. After years of doing it whichever which way, I have just kind of said, you know what? I don't want to mess with any of that. I don't look at it every 5 seconds. I don't care. So there's that. At this particular point in time, I'm waiting for my bracket mounts to arrive. And as soon as they are, we're going to go back to the roof and, you know, I'll show you guys how to install all of that. But that being said, everything else is connected. Okay. That is connected. The wiring is ran. Everybody else is happy. Alright, so here we're looking at the older and the newer generation of Renogy 100-watt panels. I have 3 compact design, and I have 2 larger design. By the way, given a choice, just buy the compact. It's easier to deal with. But nevertheless, see, that's kind of the difference between the two. Compacts are just smaller. Still produce the same. So, here's what we're going to do. We're going to make this a simple plug-and-play setup. And that's the reason why, unlike in the previous times, when I was splicing the wires and I was dealing with all of that, I'm actually going to use standard Renogy MC4 connectors that you see here. Okay, so I went ahead and ordered me 5 runs of their battery connectors, 15 feet each, or thereabouts. Okay, positive and negative. That way everything is plug and play. I don't have to mess with anything. One end is going to be like this. The other end is going to be just a standard bare wire that's going into the combiner box. Okay. Now a word about how I've chosen and why I've chosen to mount my panels in a very specific way. Traditionally, and we're going to use this as an example, This doesn't go to the actual panel, but you'll get the point. So traditionally speaking, people mount brackets sort of like this, okay? So like that, okay? And your second mount kind of goes like this, and if you choose to tilt them, you know, it kind of goes kind of sort of like that. And they actually make two size brackets, if you notice that. Okay, so you take the shorter ones, like those ones, and attach them perpendicular, and that's how it works. And meaning for that is so that when you actually tilt it and you put that cross brace bracket, the one that I use to secure the batteries, that's kind of the reason why it's shorter. So the problem with that is over time you get all sorts of gunk. Like imagine if this was the roof, you have all sorts of gunk that builds up between that, or on the leading edge, or on the back edge, and there's all sorts of algae grow, and it's all green and disgusting, and there's also acorns and little twigs and stuff. I said, you know what, time to do something about it. Since I don't tilt my panels anyways, okay, I will never tilt them that I could think of. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to be mounting them vertically, like so. And this up here is going to be attached to the roof, sort of like that. And then once, in the unlikely event, by the way, this is my RV number 4, I'm guessing. I'm hoping this is the last one that will last me well into retirement. So we're talking probably 25 years or so. If it comes to it in the future, if I win a lottery and I need to upgrade, it will be a quick removal. So this bracket over here, the one I'm holding, is going to be permanently affixed to the roof. And then I'm going to be removing the 5 panels with those brackets still attached. And so in the future, I'll just need to buy me additional, you know, longer brackets, and boom. You want everything to be removable, because buying all of this, dealers are never going to pay you for anything that you put on, you know, on your system. And people, when buying your used RV, are never going to appreciate how much effort has gone into this. So take it with you. Okay, but nevertheless, it's going to be fixed like that. And what's going to happen is when I'm driving, the wind is going to force all the air from here unobstructed down the panel to the back of the RV, and from the back of the RV into the dusty shell behind me. So this is the reason why I'm doing it like so. It really doesn't matter how you choose to mount this. I mean, you could mount this properly and tilt them. It's really up to you. Okay, but another reason why I'm doing this is, if you notice this bracket, it has like a bazillion holes in it. Okay, so that delineation that we've just done on the roof of RV with trying to figure out where the studs are, if you notice, there's holes everywhere. So it's virtually impossible for you to miss studs. So we're going to be applying VHB to the leading edge of this. We're going to be, the way it's going to work is we're going to be applying VHB to this. Okay, we're going to be sticking that to this. Once we get to the roof, we're going to peel the VHB tape and stick the panels where we want them, and then unscrew the connection between the two, remove the solar panels, and put screws through the holes, okay, hitting the studs, and then you know, putting the Turnabond on top of it and die-coring the crap out of it, and all of that, and then attaching the panels back, and that's kind of going to be it, really. Well, hello there, people of YouTube world. It's been a few days. VHB tape still has not arrived. It's supposed to be here next week, or so they say, for the third time. So I wanted to address a couple of housekeeping items, and now is the right kind of moment. So what I've done is I've placed solar panels exactly where they're going to be. After doing some finagling, I decided not to put a panel horizontally over there. I'm gonna save that for the future. And unfortunately, the way spacing worked out, I wasn't able to put two up here. That's why one is kind of offset. But that gives me an opportunity to use the space for something else. Not quite sure what, but you never know when it comes to all this stuff. So if you notice, I have wires kind of going to and from. So I've done two things. I've used the Turnabond and I've used the zip tie mount thinamajigs. And this is a perfect example of why those things are useless. They don't hold at all. Once you apply a little bit of heat, they start peeling. So there's that. So, but that being said, once I screw everything in, I'm going to be placing more Eternabond tape, just like I did there. So I'm still in the middle of things. Another thing I've done is I've changed this bottom bracket. Previously, all of my brackets would go underneath the panel. I thought about it, and that would require me to unscrew the panels. Ooh, right. That's kind of the downside of the white roof reflex. So anyways, this way I'll actually be able to mount the panel without ever having to take the unscrew anything and stuff like that, and I'll be able to use an extension on my drill to drill. So there's going to be VHB, there's going to be screws, there's going to be Turnabond tape and die core as well. So all the wires, as you can see, are going into combiner box. Same thing here. And then the way that works up here, and I still have to do some tidying up and everything like that. Those are household brand. I don't know what the technical term is. I'm guessing combiners. And the way they work is you screw a whole bunch of wires. I think they're called grounding bars. So, but they are high voltage capacity. I think up to 100 volts or 1000 volts, or doesn't matter. It's more than plenty for typical solar panel use. And so all of that is coming into here. It was separated the reds, which is the positive, the white, which is the negative, and all of that is coming back and down the shaft. So, but once I get the VHB tape, I'm gonna be mounting that and then drilling, die coring, and then I'm gonna be, using everything we talked about. And I'm keeping my broom here. It's just easier to clean the roof. I don't want to be stepping over leaves or branches or twigs or anything like that. So. Hello there, people of YouTube. Finally, after a lot of waiting, no thanks to COVID-19 and delays in shipping, got my VHB tape. So, word of advice on VHB tapes is be sure to order the right one and be sure to order authentic one. If you see a cheap VHB tape, it's probably nothing more than a counterfeit. Another really important thing to mention is that you need to order VHB tape in the correct width and correct strength. So, in my particular case, this is 5049, I believe, VHB tape, 1 inch. It has shear strength of about 90 pounds. or thereabouts, meaning that if this was adhered and you applied 90 pounds of pressure on it, that's how much it would take for it to actually come off. So now the reason why I picked 1 inch is obviously so that once we get to install it right here on the bottom side of it, it will actually go along entire width, so that when the panel is stuck to the roof, it's adhered properly. There's no gaps, there's nothing like that. Second thing is, if you look here, by the way, don't waste this. This is very expensive. So be very careful with how you cut this. You don't want to splice this with each other. You want one continuous, uninterrupted strip. And the reason why is because once you start screwing, like let's say if you were to drill a hole right there, okay, most people will just caulk this over there, right? But nobody talks about water getting from every single possible angle, in on this side, on that side, behind it. This is kind of sort of one of those things that eventually makes its way, because what happens is, as you're driving down the road or average winds, this panel in the roof flexes just a little bit, and if it rains, any kind of crack could get through to the screw. And actually, years down the road, when you remove the caulk, you start seeing screws that are covered in rust, meaning that there's water that's been entering your roof, causing all sorts of water damage. You want to prevent that from happening. So what you're doing is, you're using this on entirety of the lip, so that when you put the screw in, no water could penetrate where the screw sits. And so then you apply your EternaBond tape on top of it, securing it from the top. That way you never have to think about it ever again. So another thing you want to do is calculate just how much of it you need. I ordered 30 feet. I expect to use about 30 feet or thereabouts, and maybe a little bit less. So I'm still dealing with the Amazon seller that sent me the wrong VHB, so maybe I'll be getting extra pieces. But like I said, when you cut this thing, you want it to go on entire length of the strip uninterrupted. Because if you, let's say, you know, had a piece like that and another piece attached to it, water will get in between the two pieces. However microscopic, water finds a way. So same goes here. If you look where the combiner box is, the goal is to put VHB tape underneath where the screw is, so that when you put the screw down, it actually seals it on all sides. Alright, well, this part is not rocket surgery. It's pretty much self-explanatory. What we do is we take VHB tape and apply it on the bottom of the lip, as you can see over here, just to get you an idea. And then you just cut it at the end, and then you peel the backing off of it. The downside is, unfortunately, in production, they made it so that the backing doesn't want to come off, and it tends to peel the actual VHB material. So the best way I found, through trial and error, is when you manage to get yourself started, bend this red piece backwards so that it's flush against this, and kind of do this number all the way down the until you get to the very end. That's kind of sort of how I do this. Okie dokie. So I went ahead and applied VHB tape, and it's not something that you want to do on a regular basis. It's tacky, and it just, I don't know, there's something about manufacturing process where that red backing wants to stick to the actual VHB really bad, which makes when you apply the darn thing, it wants to peel off the piece that you're trying to apply it to until it Like it takes about, I would say 24 hours to get it to like some percentage of adhesiveness, and then through like the rest of the month it turns into, you know, you can't pry it off sort of deal. But nevertheless, wanted to show you this. If you notice, I've been using a lot of screws, and the reason why I've been talking about orienting the panel like this, and more importantly the actual mount, is that this way you maximize your chance of actually hitting the studs. So, little pop-up quiz. How many studs do you think I hit? 1 and 2. 1 and 2. So, out of all the screws that are going in, I've only hit 4 screws have hit the studs. So, there's about 40 screws or thereabouts, and there's only 4 of them that actually hit the stud. So, but nevertheless, what applying so many screws does is it actually adheres itself to the LAN board. Another thing to keep in mind is you want to set your drill to the lowest torque possible so that you don't strip the hole where the screw goes. You want it to grab the plywood that's underneath of it. And by the way, the plywood is really thin, probably like a 1/4 inch or so. You want it, you want the screw to grab the LAN board, and that's it. You don't want to be jigging holes in the actual LAN. And so the next phase is to take a turnabout and just go right on top of it. Alrighty, so I'd like to apologize for the background motorcycles, because people have been at it for the entire day. So, to kind of move along with the process, just to show you what I've done out here. So, the reason why this is a multi-layer process is because you're doing as much as you can to secure the solar panel to the roof while simultaneously trying to waterproof it as much as possible. So using this as an example, as you see, when you adhere your, by the way, this could be done with like a 2-inch turnabout, not necessarily a 4. That's just the one that's, sold in stores, but you could custom order it from Amazon and other places. So, this is actually doing multiple things. Number one, it's providing some, that's the key word, some leak protection. But it's also adhering the panel to the roof and spreading the load as much as possible. But the reason why I told you some is because you look at places like this over there, and all along the seam, it's not flush against anything, right? This would be a perfect example. Those little gaps, okay, they let water in. And so water is going to be sitting underneath of that, and it will be perpetually soggy and soaked. So the next phase is to actually take die-core and die-core as much as you can all over the place. So for example, right there, and then all along the bead over there. Now when it comes to this box over here, same deal, but I'm going to be putting die-core all around the box on all sides. But I'm going to save that for tomorrow because it's getting dark. But as you can see, this is done, that is done, that is done, and so is this. So there's averagely about 19 screws per side. So there's almost 40 screws that are holding the panels. And as you can see, sometimes you're not exactly super duper successful in... my roller is all the way in my house, and I'm just too lazy to go after it. This is on the roof, and it's doing enough of a job. But tomorrow when I come back, I'm going to take the roller and actually roll all of this, smooth this out. And I don't care if there's crinkles or wrinkles or anything like that. it will serve its purpose. So another thing that I'm gonna do tomorrow is I'm actually going to be taking a great deal of my Eternabond and securing everything, like for example that over there. Now the reason why I didn't apply it at first, because I was tilting the panels back to apply the VHB tape, so I needed extra play. So I'm gonna be putting it there and there, over here, you know, there, among other places, just enough to kind of provide it extra protection. And then this antenna over here, I'm gonna let it be for now. I don't like where this is sitting, and I don't like the way this is mounted, but I know it has to be out here in the back. So what I was thinking is actually getting rid of this and doing what RV with Tito, Brian Tito, on his channel has done. He adhered a base to which he affixed the antenna, and I like that quite a bit. I just have to look at his video and do it properly, but that's nothing to do with the solar panels. And I have just a little bit more extra wire, so I'm still exploring the possibility of having like a raised antenna thingamajig out here that I could use at campgrounds, just to give it a little bit more elevation. I know Weboost actually produces antennas, but it's something that you have to take down and store, and I don't want to be messing with that. That being said, Weboost does sell the trucker antenna thing that has like a spring for the truckers, so that in case they ever hit the bridge or anything, it will just bend rather than break. And that antenna is actually a lot better than this. So here you could see, moving along, trucking along. I'm gonna save die coring for tomorrow. Time to go home, relax, get ready for work tomorrow and all that stuff. Still under lockdown with COVID-19. I've been working from home for the last couple of months, so I got laptops ahoy going on. So let's go ahead and revisit this tomorrow, and we'll see how it goes. Alright, so I had some time to finish up a couple few things up here on the roof. So I wanted to show you guys how it all supposed to look. We're gonna start at the front. So, like I said, we have the VHB tape, followed by the screws, followed by the Eternabond, followed by the die core. And if you noticed, I put die core on the ends just as much as I did on the actual seam. So that way water cannot get through any kind of possible... well, actually, I'm going to have to go back and see. I missed a couple of spaces. But that's no big deal, because that's why you climb the roof and check again. See, like things like that, that's your possible source of water intrusion. So what I'll do is I'll actually go back and add a little bit more die core in places. No biggie. And another thing I've done is I've added a little bit more Eternabond tape to hold the wires together. Same thing over there. Okay, now this up here is an interesting beast. I've used VHB tape on the ends, just like I did with the panels. I put the screws in, I put the Eternabond on top of it, and then, if you look, I've actually die cored all around it. So what that means is that there's not going to be any water underneath the actual box. And that thing is going to be rock solid. All the other wires are pretty much in place. Like I said, this phone booster antenna might move somewhere, I'm not sure, but there-ish somewhere. The next phase is to actually go downstairs and flip the breaker. And if you notice, right behind me, the sun is setting, so we're not going to get a lot. So I'm going to wait for tomorrow morning to flip it and check it. Generally speaking, from my system, I get about 31-32 amps, sort of parked in full sun. Sometimes 33, but I would say usually around 30 to 31 amps. That's how much you get out of it. Each panel, I believe, and don't quote me on that, I think is about 5.5, 6. So that's why you get the 30. The actual specs are on the back of the panels, and of course you have to clean the panels and all that stuff. But costs associated with it and everything else. When you buy your setup, okay, just to get you an idea, whether you use the provided Z brackets, if they come with the panels, you know, that will be a cost reduction. But if you're planning to put flush mounts of any sort, or if you're using any sort of tilt brackets, they're going to be $30 per. Okay. Extension cords like so. Okay. That's an additional expenditure. So you're looking at about $15 for each run. So that's an additional cost. Of course, each roll of a Turnabond costs about 30 bucks, 35, 36. The die core is about 11, 12 per tube, and for 6 panels or 5 panels, you pretty much need 2, I would say, just to kind of help you plan. The screws are going to set you back substantially. Now, in my case, I've went overboard, obviously, with the screws. So I've used almost 2 boxes worth, and that was about $40 worth of screws. But you could generally get by with about 2 screws per corner, so 8 per panel. But then you have to find studs and all that stuff. So every panel here is mostly screwed into the LAN board, although on every corner there's at least one screw that has hit the stud. So oh, and also VHB tape, that's about $17 per 15 feet. I needed 2, so multiply 17 by 2. This box over here is about $27, I believe. Those waterproof connectors, I think they cost me 15 or so bucks. And then the metal pieces that go inside of the actual thing, they're like $6 or $7 per, and you're gonna need 2. And that's just to get you an idea of here. Of course, you know, with all the other costs that you have to incur, connecting batteries and all the tools that you need, this isn't cheap. Don't be surprised if you spend just as much on tools and all the supporting hardware as you do on the actual solar equipment. Therefore, it kind of pays to learn how to do it yourself, and you actually learn a thing or two about all of this. Alrighty, so skip forward a little bit, and another day, beautiful weather. This video would not be complete without me actually flipping the switch and making sure that everything works. So, we're going inside. Just to check that everything is operating just as it should. And let's flash the flashlight over there. Where's my flashlight? Alright, so I flipped the switch earlier in the day. That's that 40 amp breaker. And you could see that right now it's registering 13.6 volts. And everything looks to be in order. Now, the way I build the system, it gives me an opportunity to, at least in the future, if I so choose to expand this, I don't know if I want to go too extreme. There's people that, and this is kind of a moment of common sense. I've been RVing long enough to know that every few years, something happens in the RV industry where everybody, for I don't know what reason, goes on a completely sort of different tangent. I remember when solar first came out for RVs, it was like, ooh, wow, and then eventually the AGM batteries came out, and it was like, ooh, wow, right? And now it's the next best thing, which is the lithium batteries, the Victron, the, like, you get to hear fancy names. The thing is, $10,000 is a very high price to pay for something that you may not necessarily need. So this is a Class C RV, right? It's designed to be for 5, maybe 6 people traveling. Okay, and we have no need to run roof AC off the solar, for example. We have no need to, for a lot of that crazy things. You're not gonna see me here with a 3,000 watt inverter or something like that. So we keep it on the down low. We use the solar system obviously to keep the lights on, and if I so choose, I actually have a dryer. I made a separate video for it back when I had my old RV, but what I've done is I've taken that dryer out of it and actually put it here. And this exact system is perfectly capable of running that. So it's something for you to think about. You don't necessarily need to spend all this, all this money, but be prepared for a system like mine. 400 amps batteries, 500 watt solar, the mppt controller, and all the mounting hardware and everything like that. If buying from scratch, it will probably run you close to $3,000. So, and $3,000 is actually not that bad. If you had somebody else install the thing, you'd be spending an additional couple $1,000. So it's important that, you learn how to do it yourself. You know how to diagnose it. You know where everything is and how everything is done, so that you can. So that's kind of it. Everything works. Happy to say that the project is done. Everything is in smooth operating condition. And I hope some of this, helps you guys to figure out whether it's something that you could tackle yourself, or just to get you enough guidance. I know in the years past, my solar and RV modification videos have helped quite a few people. I keep getting messages still about videos posted several years in the past of people just finding my content a little bit more engaging. Partly because the way I record videos, I spend more time teaching you guys, because I learn from YouTube videos just as much as you do. I find that a longer video explains more. It goes into further detail. It covers a lot of the topics that otherwise would not be covered, and just tells you how to avoid the shortcomings and pitfalls and stuff like that. So, thank you for your time, and I'll catch you guys next time.